Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
Are we audible? Guys, participants, are we audible to everyone? Yes, good. So, ma'am, we will just wait for 2-3 more minutes. It seems we have very few participants right now. They are enjoying their Sundays. So, just in 2-3 minutes, we will start.
Okay, no problem. No problems.
Ma'am, I think we can start now. Uh, right?
Okay.
Okay. Uh, so, good morning, everyone. Today is the third day of our 5-day FDP. In this on this Sunday, I thank you all for joining for this session. And Sunday morning, I really thank our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Sonali Agrawal, for joining us and supporting us in this endeavor of faculty development. Dr. Sonali Agrawal is one of the most active academicians and researchers at IIIT Allahabad. She has organized many national and international conferences, is an active member of many boards and program committees. She supervises projects worth several crores and guides a number of PhD, MTech, and BTech students. Personally, I call her the superwoman of IIIT Allahabad. Dr. Agrawal is an expert on support vector machines. She has worked on many extensions of support vector machines such as least square support vector machine, twin support vector machine, and co-authored various papers based on support various flavors of support vector machines and its implementation with different variants. On the broader research arena, Dr. Agrawal is focusing on big data, stream analytics, and the transformation of conventional machine learning algorithm for big data environment. She is also working on Apache Spark, MOA, Samoa tools for implementation of big data application in distributed and real-time environment. She has performed exhaustive surveys on stream analytics and big data storage computing and published many papers in reputed journals. A big data implementation using Samoa for handling stream analytics is also performed by her research team under her guidance. Dr. Sonali has published several papers on healthcare data mining based on classification, regression, and clustering for predictive analysis. Dr. Sonali has published almost 150 research papers and has an impressive H index of 24 and I-10 index of 52. With these words, I call upon Dr. Agarwal to the limelight. Ma'am.
Thank you, Muneen Roja sir, for this detailed introduction. So, am I audible properly? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible properly.
Okay, okay. So, I'm sharing my screen, sir, and then I will start.
Okay, ma'am.
I hope my screen is available.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Fine. Let me minimize. Okay. So, very good morning to all participants. And I'm very delighted to share this prestigious platform. And definitely, at the end of this lecture, I may be having your constructive feedback. So, the title of my topic is dimensionality reduction. And I must say it is a elementary level lecture which I'm going to deliver today. And I have taken various basic concepts about the dimensionality reduction. So I have divided the whole coverage in some broader categories. So I will be starting with the background part. Then we'll see why dimensionality reduction is important. To just grab your attention, I have taken some of the applications at the beginning itself. Then we will see what are the possible working mode of dimensionality reduction. I have included few techniques in detail along with the overall taxonomy. I have also included 3 of my very recent research publications related to the dimensionality reduction. And then the forum will be open for discussion. So to start at the very beginning level, I am picking the term dimensionality. So as we all understand, dimensionality is the number of variable actually. Sometimes we call it as a variable, or sometimes we call it as a feature. And most of the time, these number of variables are helping us for various data mining tasks. So it is basically a kind of data mining method. The purpose of this dimensionality reduction method is to make it more simpler in terms of it data mining method. Maybe we can also consider it as a very important tool for data analysis or data modeling. So you can see this particular table where I am emphasizing on height and weight. So basically, these height and weight can be considered as a dimension. So we can say that here we have 2 dimensions. Okay, and for these 2 dimensions, we can have a number of observations. Okay, so basically, it is a very desirable that whenever we are having a number of observation, we want to see its visualization. And whenever we are visualizing any data or data samples, the dimensionality is very important because we want to include in all possible ways, in all best ways. So here you can see that we are visualizing the data which is having 2 dimensions. One is height and another is weight. But what will be a very common case, like we can have more than 2 dimensions. So here you can say that along with height and weight, we are considering age also. So that is basically the 3-dimension data. And so we can say that we can have any as much as attributes. So again the question is, suppose if we want to visualize these whole data, or if we want to do some further processing, how to include all these dimensions meaningfully for our observations. So we can say that sometimes the data is either 1-dimensional, sometimes the data is in 2 dimension. But you see this particular picture here, although the data is having 2 dimensions, but its visualization is very much consistent. So if this particular thing is not available, and only if we are focusing only on this particular part of the representation, then means it would be better, means anyone can say that these 2 dimensions are behaving very much similarly. So why not to consider it as 1 dimension? Means anyone can get confused, and it seems like it is a 1 dimension only because their behavior is very much similar. So it is just a clue like why sometimes we need dimensionality reduction. Similarly, you see here we are having 4 attributes. Basically not exactly the 4 attributes, but we are having height. Then we are having 2 representations of weight, and 1 we are having age. Then the question is what you will say, whether these 4 different columns are 4 dimensions or they are 3 dimension only. So we can say that basically they are having 3 dimensions because these 2 intermediate columns, they are representing the weight only. So what is these? Basically they are having the redundant information in 2 different scales. So that is also a very common phenomenon. Whenever we collect data, some of the dimensions or some of the attributes, they are very much redundant or very much related to each other. So basically what we need for the simplicity purpose, it is not mandatory to take both, but for any analysis, 1 may be sufficient, and it will reduce lot of our computational effort. And it is just a repetition which we want to minimize. So that is also of the concern. Before going further, let us see 2 important points. What is feature and what is level? So in very general term, we generally consider feature as input. So feature can be anything like your height, your gender, your age. So that can be a feature. Okay. And here you see the pictorial presentation. So suppose we want to suppose we want to identify whether a particular picture is of a bird picture. So on the basis of that specifically that feather, you can consider that, means you can recognize that as a bird. So that is basically feature, where some of the inputs are helping us to have clear interpretation about that scenario. The another thing is level. So level is considered as an output entity. So whenever you get some output after the training, so that output is considered as a level. Okay. So for example, like if the input feature is that fur or that feather, the output feature may be for feather, you can say that it is a bird. And if there is a input feature which is fur, you can consider that maybe any furry animal like cat. So basically you can see that here in this representation, basically features are feather and level is bird. Here the feature is fur and level is a cat. So these are the elementary thing which I have just covered for some clarity purpose. Now the question is like why we need dimensionality reduction, why we want to reduce the dimensionality, why we want to eliminate some of the columns in your table so that you can reduce your computational effort and all. So okay, so you can see that it is a typical data which I am trying to represent here. And if this is the data which is available in front of you, there may be very common questions like maybe if we are considering data mining tasks, so we may be very much eager to know the number of clusters. We can also see like how these clusters are arranged, and we can also see like what are the outliers with this data. So these are the various things which we want to answer with the help of this data which we are having. Okay, so sometimes what happen, like if we are dealing with the high dimensional data sets, so that high dimensional data sets may be very difficult to manage. So it would be a desirable thing to reduce that high dimensional data set to the low dimensional space, but we don't want to lose any information. Okay, so here you can say that, like if this is the detailed table, somehow if I could able to generate this subset of table with only with these dimension only, and if these two dimensions are enough to represent some of aspects of the data, maybe suppose the task is nothing but to have some clustering representation. So even with this two data, we can clearly say that it is representing two clusters. So what I want to say, like these two columns or these two dimensions, they are maybe meaningful or they may be very important. So this is one aspect of dimensionality reduction. We want to basically we need to convert the high dimension data points to the low dimension data. So that means to the low dimension table, so that we can able to do the analysis more conveniently. Okay, and so there is another aspects also, like sometimes whenever you are in the data acquisition step phase, so you may have this doubt like more and more data should get collected or more and more parameters should get collected. Okay, so but obviously the number of observations are important. Okay, but if you are increasing the number of observations more and more, then definitely it needs more time to compute. Definitely it needs more memory to store, and there may be more complicated explanation required, and it can be lengthy in terms of visualization. And so basically the overall burden is increasing. Okay, so this is one truth which we have to accept. And whenever you are in a data acquisition phase, you may see there are certain observations or some features or dimensions, they may be less useful or may not be useful. So can we drop those features? That we have to decide, because as I have already given the idea in previous slides, if we are working with low dimensions, so the process will be a lightweight process. And sometimes there may be another feeling, like if we are having some features which can be combined together, and so that we can have means there should not be any loss of information, but it is helping us to building some theory. So that can also be one way to reduce the number of features or to reduce the number of dimensions. So basically these are the two very common things which we may think about. First thing is, can we eliminate some of the dimensions? Second thing is, can we mix some of the dimensions so that in any of these way we may able to reduce the number of dimension. And if we are reducing the number of dimension, then definitely the process would be easy to understand. Means the overall analysis may be a lightweight process. So although this is very contradictory thing, but it is very true in machine learning. Like means maybe more observations are good, but most of the machine learning and data mining techniques indicate a surprising thing, like maybe more number of dimensions are degrading the performance of these algorithms. Okay, so this particular problem is known as curse of dimensionality. In that, if we are having more number of dimensions, so it is not going to help us in our decision making, but it may be creating some kind of trouble. Okay, so the another aspect of dimensionality reduction is like we want better visualization. Okay, and sometimes we want data compression. So data compression is for efficient use of storage and retrieval. And sometimes we want certain things to be removed as a intention that we are removing the noise. and that will help us to have more filtered information, or maybe saving of lot of our efforts and computational resources. So these are the reasons of basically this dimensionality reduction. So I'm again repeating this course of dimensionality just for clarity purpose. So basically, if you see, like, these are the three visualization. It is having one dimension only. It is having two dimension only, and it is having multi-dimensional aspect, three-dimensional aspect. So, but as the course of dimensionality indicate that the performance may degrade if we increase the number of dimensionalities. And sometimes there are some features, they may be the cause to decrease these kind of performance. And the another aspect is, like, we need more number of training examples if we are having means dimensionality which is greater. Okay, so these are the some problems where it is clearly accepted that we should be very tactful while considering the dimensionality of any data set, or in any domain, so that we can make our these approaches like machine learning or data mining approaches more efficient. So there are some other aspects also, like let us see what is the role of geometric intuition if we are considering the dimensionality reduction. So you can see, so dimensionality reduction is a reduction process. It is a minimizing process, but sometimes it becomes very tricky. We cannot directly minimize our observation. So, so basically, you can see that if these are observations like go forward or go off, or these are another observation, this is the another observation, go right. So how to mix these two observation in one way? So can we identify this middle point as a to merge these two observation? So so this is something which may be tricky. Sometimes it is useful or sometimes may not be useful. So we have to see that we can decide the dimensionality reduction strategies very carefully or very tactfully. Okay, so here you see there are two different types of blood pressures, and they are you can see in these particular table, like they are mostly correlated. So if this value is higher, accordingly this, and these values are basically the correlated thing. So what we can do, either we can rely upon any one of this, or we can rely upon some kind of averaging of this. So here, so here the motivation is, let us try to reduce the number of features. Okay, so geometric intuition says that, like, there are various way to reduce the number of features. So for example, you can see that here we have two dimensions or two features, and if we want to choose any one of these feature, then how you will decide? Because you can say that though both are somehow showing the similar kind of characteristics, not very much different. So how to make single choice based on these two? So what we can do, there may be one idea, like, can we choose the features represented by the x-axis? So here what we are doing, project the points onto the x-axis. So we are, every point we are trying to connect with the x-axis. Okay. So if we are doing like this, so it will be something like that. So this is the position along with the x-axis, and now it is representing your feature values of each instance. So basically, earlier it was two-dimensional. Now we are considering them in only one dimension, that is x-axis. The another thing is, what will happen if we choose them in terms of a y-axis? So here what we are doing, we are projecting the points in y-axis. Okay, so every point we are projecting it towards the y-axis. So you can see that this is the representation where the positions along the y-axis is the new feature values of each instance. Okay, so this is if we compare these two, so here you can say that there is no clear separation, so they are all somehow mixed. But if we see this one, so it is little better because all the blue dots may be at the upper side and all the green dots may be at the lower side. So this is roughly I am trying to explain. But there is another observation also. What do you think if we are not particular about the x-axis or y-axis? So can we take any new axis? So suppose like this. So we want this as a separation axis here. And again, what we are doing, we are trying to project each of these points in with this new axis. Okay. So this is the means reduced, you can say that dimension where everything is related to this axis only, and this is showing the feature values of each instances which we have taken earlier. So now you see it is clearly separable, means in terms of like all the blue dots are here and all the green dots are here. So you can say that we tried to observe three different ways. First was taking only x-axis for representing the feature value of each instance. So that was not clearly separate. Second was taking the y-axis to represent the feature values of each instances. Again, it was not clearly separate. But you can see when we decided to take a new axis, and rather than having a typical x or y axis, this is more clearly separable. So basically, if it is a simple classification problem, so you can see that how we are coming to some conclusion very clearly as compared to the earlier approach. So here, this is the example of transforming the feature space with the help of some input features. So we have like we are transforming the instances with the help of some axis in terms of a feature space. So the position along this new axis represents the feature values of each instance. So we have seen that earlier it was representing the instances in terms of x or y axis. Now it is representing the feature for each of these instances. So that is one very fundamental thing that I will correlate later while describing the various types of dimensionality reduction technique. Now let us just to show some of the applicability of the dimensionality reduction and how it is very important, means in most of the machine learning and data mining tasks. I am taking few example applications. So you can see that it is very much useful in customer relationship management, text mining, image retrieval, microarray data analysis, protein classification, face recognition, handwritten digit recognition, or intrusion detection. So basically, it is having a variety of applications where the dimensionality reduction techniques can help us for better decision making. And you can understand it is helpful for every type of data analytics. So if we are dealing with the face images, if we are dealing with the documents, if we are dealing with some other challenging data, for example, like gene expression data or some of the data which is related to for example, the health related data where the vital parameters are represented in terms of certain web form. So everywhere this is very important. So one past example could be of this document classification. So here we want that these unlabeled documents can be classified in terms of certain categories. And you can see like any web page can be represented or can be identified as more than one category. That is also very much possible. But if we take some appropriate features with the help of dimensionality reduction, that leveling part can become easy. So here basically we need to apply the dimensionality reduction so that we can highlight some of the specific aspects of that particular document to be classified. Similarly, there is the another example, that is the gene expression microarray. So here again you can see that if we want to classify the novel samples into the known disease type, or if it is a simple disease diagnosis kind of scenario, so you can understand that there are thousands of genes, and there may be very few samples available. So again, what we can do, we can have some kind of reduction in terms of dimension through dimensionality reduction technique, and only those meaningful, what you can say that important features can get considered, and with the help of this it would be easy to come to some conclusion in terms of disease diagnosis. So that is a very common thing which we use in the expression microarray data for the disease diagnosis. Similarly, you can see there may be other examples also, like face images or handwritten disease digits. So here again, although we can get more and more features, but sometimes if we want to distinguish between two phases or two numbers, some of the important feature can be useful. So we have to see how those important features can get extracted. So that is important. So now I am coming to, so that was just an idea like what is the scope of dimensionality reduction technique. So you can say that it is widely applicable in most of the machine learning techniques or data mining tasks. And it is basically reducing a lot of our computational effort, and it is basically increasing our decision making capability. So with this motivation, I am coming to the detailed parts of these dimensionality reduction methods. So before going for detailed taxonomy, I am taking various working modes of dimensionality reduction techniques. So working modes are basically, they are the general principle which is followed by the various methods of dimensionality reduction. So this is the detailed taxonomy of dimensionality reduction. I'm taking the important points here. So you can see these two red part. One is the batch processing, and second is the online processing. So like it is the need of the scenario now. We have to be ready to work with the batch processing environment as well as the real-time or near real-time processing environment. So as the dimensionality reduction techniques are also divided into two broader aspects like batch processing and online processing. So as we understand, like in batch processing data, the whole data is available, or we can consider that data is at rest. So and whenever the data is at rest, so there is no hurry, or means you can do the analysis anytime, and maybe it can be repeated again and again. So basically in batch processing, all the input files are collected in a batch, and they can be processed together, maybe sooner or later. Okay, so that's why it is named as a batch processing environment. Second is the online processing. So online processing means data is not at rest, but basically the data is in motion. So whenever we say that, whenever we assume that data is in motion, it means there is certain speed of its arrival, and it may be vanish after some time, or it may be replaced by the new data samples. So that is a very common consideration. So online processing means it may be possible that we are handling transactions, and we may be handling a direct kind of interactions, and definitely we need to respond immediately. So basically online transaction means we have to be more and more responsive. We have to be more and more what you can say that speedy. Then only we can serve the purpose. Maybe any similar transactions which are either happening in real time or maybe in the near real time kind of constraints. So the another possible mode of dimensionality reduction can be a linear dimensionality reduction, non-linear dimensionality reduction. So you can see that, like, if we are considering the batch processing of dimensionality reduction, again we have linear and non-linear concepts. Even if we are considering the online dimensionality reduction or interactive or the real-time dimensionality reduction, again we have linear and non-linear two categories. So it is a very general understanding. Like if we are considering the linear dimensionality reduction, it means we transform the data to a low dimensional as a linear combination of original variables. So there is not much which is changing. Okay, so basically there should be a linear relationship. You can say that in terms of the low dimensional value, in terms of the outcome, as well as the input variable or original variable. Okay, so a linear transformation, this is the very typical definition. Like a linear transformation between two vector spaces V and W is a map where we can say that a collective collective value may be sum of these two individual values, or it may be anything which is linearly related. So this is the example. Like suppose we have some data matrix X, and we are calculating the singular value decomposition of X. So just for having some a kind of dimensionality reduction, which is PCA, I will be explaining it. So basically, whenever we do the linear dimensionality reduction, it is not going to change a lot. So your input variable and whatever you are getting, the reduced set of dimensions, maybe somehow you can say that similar, or so they can be not very much changed. Okay, so and they are not, basically they are not very much surprising. So basically this is the linear type of dimensionality reduction. Okay, the another thing is non-linear dimensionality reduction. So non-linear dimensionality reduction means it is dealing with the non-linear type of data, and basically it is a more dramatic change which we receive after doing some kind of dimensionality reduction. So suppose if it is the original data, if you apply the Gaussian kernel here, so you can get some very different or surprising result here. So that is basically the non-linear reduction. So here sometimes we need it deliberately, because that linear relationship is not existing, and whenever we are following the linear methods of doing this dimensionality reduction, it may not help, it may not be helping us for some better understanding. Okay, so here we need non-linear methods of dimensionality reduction. For example, we may introduce the kernel, and kernel may help us to have the better transformation of dimensions, and that can be meaningful also. So we can do that. The another possible working mode of dimensionality reduction, again you can see this is another taxonomy I have referred. So they say that dimensionality reduction techniques can be divided into two parts if we are thinking in terms of optimization. So they may be the convex technique, or they may be the non-convex technique. Okay, So basically, whenever we deal with any approach, the optimization is one of the prime concern. So we have to see that how to optimize these things. So accordingly, the approach will differ. So here also, you can see that the convex problems are very much useful for considering the optimization part of any approach. So here, these are the three very fundamental descriptions, like when we consider it as a convex. So whenever this particular line is above this shape, so you can say that it is convex. Whenever any of these points of the line which is below this particular shape, so you can say that it is non-convex. Okay, and if so basically this is the criteria. So most of the dimensionality reduction method follow the optimization techniques which is convex in nature, or and it is also sometimes non-convex kind of problems which we face during the optimization. So that is having a very separate category of dimensionality reduction method. If we see the other possible ways of working, so you can consider like supervised kind of DR methods, dimensionality reduction methods, or unsupervised kind of dimensionality reduction methods. So unsupervised method means we may be not having any target variable. Okay. And supervised method means we take the help of a target variable, and accordingly we take our decisions. So basically these are the two broader description, to a broader category of considering this method. Then there are further other working modes. So one is the global dimensionality reduction method. So global approaches are basically to attempt the geometry at all the scales. So basically they are mapping the nearby points in low dimensional space in a basically while preserving their internal connections. Okay. So they are more faithful because they are preserving the properties, and they can be more convincing, that can be theoretically more correct also. So these are the global dimensionality reduction methods. So whatever you are getting as a new set of dimensions, they are holding all the properties of your full set of dimensions, you can say that, in terms of geometry or in terms of scale. Okay. So when we follow the global dimensionality reduction techniques, it is followed when the data set is globally correlated. So most of the variation in the data can be captured by few dimensions. Okay. So so if the data is globally correlated, so definitely we can give few of them, and we can come up with the same confidence with the same theory. So that is the case. But you can understand we may not be lucky enough to every time having these type of ideal data sets. So most of the time data sets are not globally correlated. So if you are in that is the case, and if we are following some global dimensionality reduction mechanism, so it may result loss of you can say that information, and sometimes a large number of false positives, and maybe a high query cost. Okay. So that is the scenario when we have to see that what may be the other way of doing the dimensionality reduction. So the another way which we say, that is locally correlated dimensionality reduction or local dimensionality reduction. So what we do, we divide the data in some local subsets, and we try to find out those subsets on the basis of their local correlation. So local approaches attempts to preserve the local geometry of the data, and basically they are seeking to map the nearby points in the low dimensional representation. Okay. So basically, we are limiting our observations to the local correlation only, and accordingly we are keeping them under consideration for local dimensionality reduction. So I think it can be shown with the help of figure. This one, you can say that. So if it is a globally considered dimensionality reduction, so what sometimes we feel like sometimes some of the data can be represented with the help of more local features. So this is the very normal case. Like we are calculating the principal component here, so that may be one case. So here the GDR, this global dimensionality reduction, it is converting two-dimensional data to one-dimensional data. And you can see that this is the another case where the data is converted from two dimension to one dimension, but again you can say that the data is not globally correlated. And you see the third case where the data is locally correlated. So that may be a good way to decide whether the global correlation is prominent or local correlation is prominent, and accordingly we may identify whether to take the dimensionality reduction exercise with all set of global features, or we can take them in some kind of subsets with some local means by relying upon some of the local correlation features. So this is basically one other mode of working of dimensionality reduction, that is global or local. Now I am coming to the basically you see there are I have shown one taxonomy in a very detailed way. So let me go back. So you can say that these are the overall taxonomy of the dimensionality reduction techniques with various methods. So what you will find out, these are very general concepts like supervised or unsupervised, globally dimensionality reduction, global dimensionality reduction, or local dimensionality reduction, or maybe batch or online. So basically all these methods are differ from one to another on the basis of these concepts only. So you can see that they are having variety of variations of these dimensionality reduction methods because they are following one specific kind of working methodology. Okay, so now I'm coming to the next point, that is what are the major techniques of dimensionality reduction. So if we talk about the major techniques of dimensionality reduction, so what we can do, sometimes we can be very selective. So we can say that we know that there are 10 features, but we are very much confident that only 2 features may be important. So we can we can go with that 2 features only. Okay, we will also see like what are the different feature selection methods. And the another aspect is feature extraction. So feature extraction means we are not simply selecting, but we are extracting the features maybe with the help of certain combinations and something like that. So and we have to also see whatever methods we are following, what are the principle behind it. Maybe somehow they are either following the supervised criteria or unsupervised criteria. Okay. So anyways, all these techniques are working with the same objective, that is to choose an optimum set of features or of lower dimension to improve the machine learning performance or maybe the classification performance. Okay. So there are different methods where we rely upon for the dimensionality reduction, and 2 very important methods are either feature extraction and feature selection. Okay, so and again you can see the categorization, like if it is unsupervised method, so only the input data will be given to you, and the type of dimensionality reduction, which we will see later in detail, may be the PCA. And if it is a supervised dimensionality reduction, where we have some biasness in terms of the output. So here we have another series, another categorization of dimensionality reduction methods. So they are the Fisher discriminant analysis, partial least squares, and canonical correlation analysis. So these may be because of the fundamental difference which we opted whether to go in a supervised way or unsupervised way. And definitely the lot of research are going on to explore some of the semi-supervised methods. Okay, so let us see these methods in detail, like how to perform the feature extraction and feature selection. So feature extraction means we are not selecting straightforward, but we are trying to get new features as the combination of original features. Okay, and you can see that the problem is how you will decide that what are the important what are the features you want to combine. So basically sometimes what will happen, you have to try for all the combinations, and here we we need to calculate all the features. So that may be one possibility. The another approach is feature selection. So where we are limiting our observation in such a way, like new features may be subset of your original features. So it is nothing but selecting some small number of features to be for our further analysis. So it may be helping us to reduce the burden, and sometimes you can say that it can be a way to have faster classification. Okay, so here basically we are reducing the computational overhead. Okay, so this is the another representation of the feature extraction. So we are finding a new feature through some mapping of the existing feature. So mapping can be any kind of mixing or any kind of combination, and it could be mapping could be linear or non-linear. And feature selection is basically choosing a subset of the original features. Okay, and so basically these are having their own benefits whenever we go for either feature selection methods or feature selection methods. And they have the way of working in terms of linear or non-linear methods. Okay, so let us see these things in more detail with the help of certain detailed coverage of the method. So you can see that although this taxonomy is too exhaustive, we are considering here linear feature extraction methods. So here we can see, we can later cover two important feature extraction methods, that is basically PCA and LDA. And there are other methods also, if your motivation is to make the features as independent as possible, then the method is basically ICA, that is independent feature analysis. And suppose if we are having some motivation in terms of certain interesting direction, so you can go for the method which is known as projection pursuit. And if we somehow follow the embedding to the lower dimensions, so maybe we can have some conceptual amalgamation in terms of isomap or in terms of locally linear embedding that we call LLE. So basically these variations are having some conceptual difference from one to another. So in this way we are trying to cover. Okay, so I think okay, let us see them in detail. So I'm considering the feature selection for the detailed coverage. So I think you can understand that feature variables could be name, age, gender, education qualification, and salary. But maybe if you are developing certain machine learning models, so name is not contributing much. Name can be anything, but definitely age, gender, education qualification, and salary, they can have some kind of meaningful correlations. So what we can do here, we can simply choose that means feature selection method, and we can eliminate the name. So reducing the number of input variables during the development of a predictive model can be feature selection. So here you can simply say like all features are not important. Suppose we are not considering, maybe it is possible that we don't, we are not considering the name, or we are not considering the gender. So name and gender can be hidden, or it can be removed from our analysis. So, so that is a straightforward selection or rejection of certain attributes. Okay, so that may be one way. So again, how to decide that selection or rejection? It can be with the help of some supervised methods or some unsupervised methods. So, so there are various steps of feature selection. So first, you are having the whole training data with complete feature set. Okay, then you are trying to select some of the subset. And what will be the subset selection criteria? In general, you can see that it's usability, or maybe in terms of some goodness factor, and we can identify which features means which features are more prominent, and that can be identified with the help of some objective function. So after that, we can come up with the selected set of features. Okay, but the problem is it can be sometimes exhaustive, it can be sometimes randomized. So we have to see that how to come up with some concrete idea about these kind of feature selection methods. So we have certain supervised feature selection methods that make use of the target variable, and so that some irrelevant thing related to that target variables can be discarded. Okay, so supervised feature selection methods are having three categories. One is the wrapper, second is the filter, and third one is the in-centric or embedded methods. So let us see what is the filter method. So first you have all those features, then you are selecting the best subset, and then you are further applying the learning algorithm and you are checking the performance. So it is a kind of pre-processing step where you are filtering, means you are taking some specific features. Okay, so and the problem is if you are keeping all the features, so you have a variance may not be very much clear. So basically we have to see that how to take the more appropriate features to get clear picture. Okay, now the question is how to calculate that goodness factor. So that there are various ways to calculate the goodness factor. So sometimes we see the interclass distance, sometimes we see some of the statistical measures. For example, like if the features or responses are continuous, then we calculate Pearson correlation, and accordingly we calculate. If the features and responses are categorical, then we calculate IDA, and similarly for categorical values, ANOVA and chi-square test is also useful. So basically we are taking the measures with the help of some statistical measure values. Okay, then we have some other techniques also, like how to reduce these search methods so that we should not go for each and every combination of these subsets. So that is again very much important, and that we have to consider. So let us see the other method, that is the wrapper method. So wrapper method means what we are doing here, we are starting with all the features and we are generating a subset, and then we are performing certain learning algorithm, and repeatedly we are checking each subset in terms of the efficiency of the learning algorithm, and at last we are taking the best subset for further observation. So this is basically the wrapper method. Okay, so here we are taking the combinations and we are calculating the performance for the comparison purpose in terms of means we are calculating the performance of the feature combinations in terms of some model accuracy. Okay, so this is the wrapper method. So basically every feature subset we calculate, with the help of certain machine learning model, and accordingly we see the impact. So there may be various ways to calculating the subsets. So what we can do, let us see the methods one by one. So first one is the sequential forward selection method. So here what we'll do, we'll see the best single feature. It has to be selected, okay, with the help of certain objective function. And then so basically then we can see that how the pair of features can be formed using one of the remaining features. So to this best feature, and then again best pair is selected, then maybe the best triplet is selected. So basically we are starting with the empty set, and then we are assuming that one feature would be best. Then we are merging the another best feature with this. So maybe one pair may be the best, and maybe the best triplet can be considered. So here basically in terms of sequential forward selection method, we consider the best when the optimal subset is as small as possible. So basically it is a kind of merging the important features. So that is one method. Okay. So basically we are adding new features at each and every iteration, and we can see that it is going to help for increasing the efficiency. Okay, so whenever we are merging more and more features together, it will help to increase the efficiency. The second method is the sequential backward selection. So what we are doing, we are just doing the reverse thing. Here we are first considering all the features, and then we are deleting one feature at a time. And in this way, the idea is to delete all the poor features or useless features, and in this way we can come up with some most optimal feature. Okay, so you can say that features are removed at every iteration. So whenever we are removing the features at every iteration, that is basically known as sequential backward method, and you can show that it is also going to help in terms of feature reduction. Then there are some variations also, like bidirectional search. So what we do, we perform the sequential forward method, as well as we perform the sequential backward method with full set. And then we have to see that like they should converge it to some point. Okay. So here we have to keep some of the important idea in our mind, like feature which are already selected by the forward selection. It cannot be removed by the backward selection, and the features which are already removed by the backward selection methods cannot be added by the forward selection method. So basically here we are converging to some point where the most important feature would be identified. So these are the different ways of identifying the important features. But sometimes what will happen, like sometimes the useless features can get discarded, can get accepted, means can be still present, or useful feature can get discarded. So sometimes it create a kind of dissatisfaction with the help of this. So here what we do, instead of going random, means going in a very mechanical way, either in forward selection way or backward selection way, backward elimination way, what we do, we take some help in terms of some what you say that user defined parameters. So user defined parameters are here L and R, and plus L and minus R. These may be any threshold values. So if your optimum values, so if L is greater than R, we can start with the empty set. And if L is less than R, we can start with the full set. And if we are starting with the empty set, so we start adding features one after another. And so we are getting some kind of biasness with the L value. So we are adding the L kind of features and we are removing the R kind of features. And similarly, if L is less than R, so repeatedly we are removing the R type of features and we are adding the L type of features. So the question is like, what is this motivation behind L? Means how to identify these L values and R values. So L values and R values, they are typically user defined parameters, and it is depending upon the type of analysis we are performing, and it is also very much depending upon the type of data set. Okay, then we have a floating kind of concept also. So floating means we are not relying upon the mixing of these values and an L and R, but we are taking certain kind of range during the whole analysis, and we consider that particular range as our available search space. Okay. So I think it is enough with this. So now I am coming to the some of the concluding remarks. So if we are using wrapper method, so advantage is higher recognition accuracy as compared to the filter methods. Okay, and because they somehow they are using these machine learning models in between to get the best feature set, and sometimes because of this only they are slow. So sometimes they are slow as compared to the filter methods. And every time, because we are taking the machine learning model under exercise, and there is a training time and there is a testing time, so that can be cumbersome process. Okay. And the another thing is like optimal feature selection. Basically, it is here more depending upon the type of machine learning model which we are using for the calculation. So may not, and there are variety of choice. So some choices may not be equally well for other classifiers. And the another thing is filter methods are faster. So because they have low computational overheads, and sometimes they are very straightforward, so they can work with well with most of the classifiers. And sometimes it may be you can say that a disadvantage, like they show poor accuracy. And because why poor accuracy? Because they are not as effective as the wrapper method, because they come up with more number of features. So there is a combination of these two, which is a wrapper as well as the filter method combination. So it is combining the quality of filter and wrapper method. And what we are doing, we are selecting the best subset, and then we are checking the learning algorithm performance, and then again we are generating some subset. So basically, this is the method which is a combination of these two. So that was all about the feature extraction and feature selection in general. Now I am taking more details about the two very popular dimensionality reduction methods. They are PCA and LDA. So as these two names are together as well as they are separate, because the PCA follows unsupervised way of working, and LDA follow the supervised way of working in terms of dimensionality reduction. So PCA is basically, you can say that it is the most representative algorithm. So most of the variations are follow the same principle with some what you can say that modifications. So here there is a term which is known as principal component. So if we want to reduce the dimensionality, so we are basically replacing our these means representing our data instances in terms of principal components. Okay, so let us see. You have two planes here. You can see that A plane and B plane. So A is this one vertical and it is slightly horizontal. So if these are the data elements or data points, and if you are projecting these data points towards A plane, so you can get something like this. And if you are projecting is towards B plane, so you will get some kind of these details. So B is having higher variance, so means they are more spread, they are more clear, they are more separate. So you can say that B may be more informative because it is showing all the points separately in reduced dimension. Okay. So, and sometimes they are very much helping you to identify the class. So you can identify like this may be one class or this may be another class. So here, you can say that these kind of projections can be represented with the help of principal components. So that is also useful whenever we follow the data compression. So if the data is reduced from 3 dimension to 2 dimension, so you can say that these Z1 and Z2, they are representing these 3 dimension data into 2 dimension data. So that can be a principal component. So so basically the principal component axis is that axis which is having higher variance. So that is the motivation. So, and what we do, we continuously choose the principal components one after another, and the next principal component is orthogonal to the previous principal component. And why it is orthogonal? Because we want to cover more and more variety under our observation. And finally, we come up with some K principal components, and these K principal components should be enough to represent the whole observation with lower dimension. So basically, you can see that this is the first principal component you have chosen in some because of some data variation, and orthogonal to this, basically you are going to take the next principal component, and this next principal component may be covering some other details. So, and how we calculate these directions, and these directions can be calculated by some eigenvectors of covariance matrix. And basically let us see like what is variance and covariance if it is not clear. So variance and covariance are nothing but to show to understand the data more clearly in terms of spread. Okay. uh, so variance and covariance are basically representing the spread, and these spread is with respect to some kind of mean value, and it is also a kind of deviation from the mean value to any particular dimension. Okay. And so basically covariance, you can say that it is measured between 2 dimensions, and it also highlight that how these 2 dimensions are related, and covariance between 1 dimension is your variance. So basically it is a way to understand the impact of your dimensionality reduction. So you can see that this is the positive covariance where the values are increasing or decreasing together, and here it is the negative covariance, while increasing one value the other is decreasing. Similarly, we have eigenvectors and eigenvalue as a conceptual thing. So eigenvector is representing the vector which is showing the direction of the principal component. It is a characteristics vector, and eigenvector can be a characteristics value. And you can understand that the zero vector cannot be an eigenvector, but the zero value can be an eigenvalue. So as far as the mathematical calculation of principal component analysis is concerned, first we consider some input data, then we have certain set of vectors, and then we calculate d-dimensional vector with k-dimension feature vectors. So basically we are summarizing it. So some principal components are required to calculate it on the basis of your input data. Okay. And then we identify the vector which is orthonormal to the previous vector, and then there may be the new principal component can be highlighted. So every time we are getting the more and more number of principal components in such a way so that we can cover different aspects of the instances to better represent them with reduced number of features. So the question is like how we can calculate the value for K. So how we can calculate the number of information variance. So actually it is a kind of threshold. So if T threshold, this T is equal to 0.9, so we can say that we have preserved the 90% of the information or variance in the data. Or if K is less, then definitely we are losing some kind of information. So if K is equal to N, then it is a 100% variation preserve of the information. So, but you can say that these kind of situations may not be very much fruitful. So for all the situation cases. So I am taking some quickly. I am covering some of the applications of PCA. So suppose you want to calculate, you want to identify some of the faces with the help of a PCA. So should make it more complex, because if you are having a 100 cross 100 image, so it is basically 10,000 dimensions. So that may be a very slow process with a lot of overhead. So how to make this process lightweight? So here there is a concept of eigen faces. So eigen faces means we are taking only important features from each and every face. Okay, so that is basically the eigen faces. And and with this we can create, means we can take the important features only to make distinguish means decision. You can say that like if the another example is like image compression. So if we want to do the image compression with minimum loss of information, then you have to identify the important features. And here you can see that this particular image is having means a very rich pixel value. So if we are reducing its dimension, so that definitely we are going to lose the data, but we have to compromise in such a way so that still it may able to get recognized for the said purpose. So we can reduce it from 144 dimension to 60 dimension. And again, you have to identify the most important eigenvectors. So this is basically a kind of reduction. Okay. And it is basically 6 important eigenvector. And it is the 144 dimension to 3-dimensional reduction. So still we can somehow guess that it is the same, but we are losing some of the information. So this is because of the help of the 3 important eigenvector. And this is the 1-dimensional reduction, so that may not be very much helpful. So basically these are the way how PCA can help us to identify the prominent features with the help of SVD, so that we can get some prominent features without actually losing much information. So there are various variations of PCAs which are available, but it is very difficult to cover here. So like for example, dual PCA. So dual PCA, if the dimension is very much higher than the number of samples, so we follow the dual PCA with a slightly different variation in terms of mathematical concepts. Then there is another aspect like non-linear PCAs. So sometimes what happens, like in linear projections will not detect the pattern. So we need to follow the non-linear projection, and that is with the help of some kernel trick or kernel function. So with the help of these kernel trick and kernel function, we perform the non-linear transformation to a very high dimensional feature space so that we can see the clear impact. Okay. So here with the help of this, we can have the better idea about the desired objective. And again, this can be with the help of some kernel function, then only we can get it a clear separable plane with the help of this kernel trick which we are applying. So I think it is very difficult to cover it here because we have very limited time. So I'm concluding the PCA's general concept now. So PCAs are basically these are the most fundamental method, and they cover the variability part of the data, and they also give us means very effective compression, and they are helping us to eliminate most of the noise. So basically there are some limitations also, like sometimes means even after applying PCA you will not get some kind of reduction, or so it may not be very much clear. And since the PCA is based on the variance coverage, and variance may not be very informative all the time, so we have to see for some other methods. Okay, and so the other method where this variance is not very much helpful, we follow LDA. So LDA is basically linear discriminant analysis. So here what we do, here we are not choosing axes, two different axes, but here we are choosing the class labels to classify that instances. Okay. Basically, according to the class level, we choose axis. We are not considering in terms of variations, which we did earlier. So here you can say that here we have two class labels based on the two axes which we have. So the another way example you can see here, like if these are the data instances, and if you are projecting it like this, which we did before, so this will not give us a better separability or good separability. But if we are projecting like this, you can say that, so here it is showing us a good separability. So basically here it is considering the scatter thing within the class in such a way so that the two part of these scatteredness can be identified as two different classes. So there are certain mathematical calculation here. So I think it is very difficult to cover it with this last time, but I can include some of the examples now. So basically, if we quickly try to understand, so LDA is it is again discriminating between the data with the help of certain class levels. So for example, like if we are trying to discriminate the faces with the help of LDA, so this may be your database. So we will compute the average of all the faces first. So whatever faces we have identified, we'll calculate the average of all the faces. And after calculating that average, and we can subtract them from the training phases. And then we'll prepare the scattered matrix, which we have seen. And then we will see within class scattered matrix. So it is a kind of subset which we collect so that we can distinguish that in terms of various classes. And we try to make them as separate as possible with the help of certain representation. Now we have another aspects also, like PCA, which is online PCA, which we call as streaming PCA. So here the streaming PCA means we have to work with we are not ready to work with the what you say that more memory, which is in terms of secondary memory, but we have to do all the calculation in our main memory itself. And we also understand that all the data elements are not available together. So basically here what we do in streaming PCA, we are doing some local calculations with the help of limited availability of data, which we call as a windowing mechanism. So with the help of windowing mechanism, we follow the concept of incremental PCA, and rest of the things are same. The only thing is the data is available in blocks. So we are calculating the principal components again and again for every new upcoming set of data. And with the help of forgetting mechanism, we are forgetting the older one, and we are accommodating the new arrival in terms of principal component. So that was all about the conceptual thing. Now quickly I am covering my research publications, recent research publication in this. So here what we did, Here, since the purpose of dimensionality reduction is to work well with the low dimensional data set, so we identified that how to work with the target class. Target class means we are already assuming that we are having some limited information about the level, class level. So we identified two methods. One is the target class guided feature selection method, and second is the target class guided feature transformation method using eigen knowledge grid. So in this first method, basically it is recently accepted in International Journal of Pattern Recognition and AI. So here we are using the concept of learning target class feature subspace. So here we are considering only target class samples are available for the training. So we are assuming this, and we first perform the eigen analysis to calculate the variance covariance matrix, and then we have identified a method to reject some of the less information eigenvectors, and then from the extracted eigenvectors we extracted the useful features, and we could able to see the performance. So this was the first method. Basically here we are rejecting the higher and lower valued vectors, and we are selecting the features accordingly in terms of a target guided concept. So we are assuming that the one class level sample is available. So this is the whole schematic diagram. So here we are considering the target class sample only first. Then we are doing the normalization and eigen decomposition. Once the eigen information is available, so we are eliminating higher as well as the lower values of the eigen vectors, and then we are extracting the influential features from that. And with this collection, finally we are checking the machine learning model, and we are tuning the parameters for the best set of results. So these are the mathematical descriptions. So this method is performed with the 9 data sets, and these are having the features and class levels, and we have selected only one class at a time because it is a target guided method. The results are available, but due to lack of time, I am not showing here. So the another method was target class guided dimensionality reduction. So here we focused upon the novel method of learning target class, that is eigen subspace. So here in this, we are assuming that the target class samples are available for the training. Again, we followed the same thing, eigen analysis, and performed the variance covariance matrix. And with this, we again extracted the target class eigen vectors, and in this way we tried to eliminate the unwanted features with the help of a knowledge grid and one class classification. So this work is actually under review nowadays. So we are not sure how it will be taken by the reviewers. The another work which we followed with the sample length and training sample length reduction with univariate time series methods. So again, this work we are trying to capture the time series data, and we have followed dissimilarity based representation techniques, and that is used for the time series representation. There are several prototype methods we have tried here to obtain the sample reduction, and we are assuming that only target class samples are available. Again, we performed the eigen analysis on the various possible target class samples, and we calculated the variance and covariance matrix. And again, we discarded the less informative eigenvectors, and finally we come up with the knowledge matrix. And with this, we are going to represent like how to do the sample reduction, which is very challenging in terms of time series analysis. So this work was also accepted in a ARANG conference. Okay, so I think this is all as per the time permitted I can cover. So in a nutshell, what I can conclude that although the concepts are very same, very simple, and they are very much basic, but you can see there are n number of variations still coming every day. So we should focus on the conceptual things first. And you can say that the computational scenario is nowadays very much changing. Like every scenario which was earlier considering the data at rest, now it is shifting where we are considering the data in motion. So data in motion means either we are looking for some incremental solutions, or we are looking for some very lightweight solution so that everything can be performed in a very quick way with some main memory availability only. So these are the new research trends where we can focus upon for taking this dimensionality reduction concept in a new direction, so that the researchers can get benefited and the machine learning algorithms can be easily adopted for these challenging situations. So I think it is all from my side now. So if possible, we can have some questions from the audience.
If anybody wants to ask question, they can unmute themselves and ask the question.
I am very much happy to share these slides. I have taken this all references, which was very exhaustively collected. So I think it can serve the purpose as a bibliography. So if anyone wants to see, the another thing is the taxonomy, which I have represented. It is itself the incremental variations are showing some new possibilities in research directions. So that can also be lead for some taking some new problems in this dimensionality reduction area.
Ma'am, actually, it's very kind of you to prepare such an exhaustive, detailed lecture, and I see that you have 173 slides, and it's really a huge collection of information that students really needed. Actually, till previous year, the AICT used to have 1.5 hour session, and now they have made it a 2 hour, 1.5 to 2 hour session, and I find it really difficult for even for students and for the expert to continue for 2 hours. That's really exhaustive, because see, we are not dealing with preliminary things, we are talking about advanced research. So talking for 2 hours about advanced research and these topics, and as you very rightly pointed out, and you had to skip some of the complex details regarding principal component analysis, because these things cannot be discussed so casually in an FDP. You need a thorough discussion about these topics. So it was very nice of you to summarize
We
these
cannot
things. And
yeah, actually we cannot pick mathematical concepts in between. We have to
yes,
step by step, we need to follow each and every calculation. Then only you can genuinely explain these detailed analysis. Otherwise,
yes, ma'am.
means it may be beyond, yeah, so it is very difficult to explain all these things without keeping all the steps very clearly
I
and
was
very
really
detailed way.
surprised how you. I was really surprised how you started explaining the dimensionality reduction and then concluded with PCA LDA, giving almost a refresher about everything that I discuss in my class, and I take almost 6 classes to complete this part. So it was very wonderful, ma'am, and I am saying. I'm seeing so many beautiful comments and appreciations for the talk. If anyone has any question, probably I have shared your email ID, ma'am. Without your permission, I have
Yeah,
shared the official email ID. So they
no
can
issues.
either write directly to you, or they can interact with you. Since this is a faculty development program and we are aspiring to create wonderful faculty members, so in teaching and academics, the collaboration is the biggest thing that you should aspire for, and to learn from your peers. So you can interact with Dr. Sonali Agrawal. You can write to her and take her guidance and collaborate with her group if possible. So I
Yeah,
will thank.
I have already given the hint, like if they are taking a new research problem in this direction, so they can take the streaming scenario, like how streaming data can handled if we are thinking for the in terms of objective of dimensionality reduction. So I personally feel like a lot of scope is there, and a very small tricky thing you have to explore. That is the reality. So with this, I think some of the new research problems they can find out, and yeah, I will be always happy if somebody is means if I can help someone. So I'm open for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And with these, I think I would like to conclude over here. And so, thank you, ma'am. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sparing time and giving this wonderful lecture. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. So lastly, I would like to wish all the participants for a very good research journey, a very excellent career ahead. So all the best, everyone. And anytime I would be happy to connect with all of you someday. So all the best. And thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay. So shall I disconnect now?
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Ma'am's email ID is sonali@IITA.ac.in. You can write to her and take her guidance if you want. You can, if your field matches, you can collaborate with Dr. Sonali Agrawal. So with this, I would like to conclude this session, and we will meet again at 11:45. Thank you all for being here and listening to this session. And you are a wonderful audience, and thank you all. So we will meet at 11:45 with the next session.